There isn't really anyone challenging us. I think some competition would be healthy.
I think that's why so many people give up after a couple of episodes.
And I am a marketeer, and podcasting is genius.
But yeah, what should we talk about? We always manage to figure something out.
The BBC have knocked on the door.
Hello, welcome back to the Podcasters Podcast. In this episode, we have a very special guest, and it's not Kane.
Oh, fun.
We have Moto Matt with us. How are you, Matt?
I'm very well, thanks. Great to see you.
Good.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Thanks for travelling hours to come here.
It has been nearly 5 hours, yeah, but worth it. I listen every week, I think. I probably have consumed most of your content.
Really?
Some of it's very good.
You know what? I'm definitely seeing the positive in that. I won't listen to all of the content. But also, look, Matt, take us back to where Moto Matt started, where the content, the YouTube, the podcast, where it all came from.
Yeah, so we launched 3 years ago a shop called That Leisure Shop, and we were watching an aspirational brand down under. I'm not sure if they're Australia or New Zealand, I can't remember. They're called Snowies, and they're like a B&Q style outdoor leisure shop, and they were doing these amazing videos on product, kind of what's in the box and how do you use it and the spec of the product. They're very dry, very informative, but they were brilliant, and we were aspirationally trying to copy that. And they launched a podcast, and Maddie, our marketeer, she said, you're going to want to do a podcast next, aren't you? And I said, Maddie, we haven't got the know-how, the knowledge, or the time. Don't panic. And I thought, but you're right, I would love to launch a podcast. It's the future of media. TV, radio are dead. Podcasting's where it's at one day.
What year is this, sorry?
3 years ago.
Okay.
And local radio, BBC Bristol, where I live, the newsreader, Keith Gooden, was retiring. And the next day after that conversation, he rang me and said, Matt, it's Keith. I said, oh, hello, Keith, nice to hear from you. And I used to go in and read the papers or a feature on an article on Brexit or something as a local businessman. And Keith said, I'm retiring from Auntie and I'm being paid off and I'm launching a podcast production business. I think you should have a podcast. I've just watched one of your videos. It was really informative. Can I help you? I went, gosh, you're not going to believe this, Keith. And of course, this was just, the universe playing out. And so Keith came in, stuck a mic in my face, and we did some very early content, which I'm sure was dire. And I joked that he was grooming me into how to do a podcast. And Moto Matt was born. And we launched in November, when was it? November 22. And we pushed out our first episode, and we have done one consistently every Monday since then. So we're on 150 something now, and that's how the Moto Matt podcast came about.
Yeah, and over that amount of time, how many downloads have you had? How many views? Do you know the rough number?
I think it's Maddie totted them up. It's nearly 1 million.
Wow,
like literally on the cusp of 1 million. I think probably this week we'll hit 1 million.
Is that across both combined?
Across YouTube and Podbean, where it's hosted. So when we launched, we were on Buzzsprout as a platform. Yeah. We wanted to do dynamic ad placement, which Buzzsprout at the time didn't do. So we moved to Podbean. So yeah, all combined with YouTube views, it's 1 million watches. And what's interesting is recently, the last video we did had 40-odd thousand in a week, more than that. But the watch time is around 10 minutes. It's not like a 10-second view. It's a really considered average engagement of 10 plus minutes. So yeah, it's incredible. But it's about being in a niche and, as we've joked, being famous to a few.
Yeah, and that quote I came up with, right?
My quote, which you stole off me.
I did.
it's borrowed, right?
Yeah, it's borrowed.
He's bringing
and
it back.
quoted relously.
It's a good quote.
It was mine.
Honestly, he complimented me on the quote when I said it after the episode. I was like, I'm going to have to be honest, it's not mine. I stole it.
But that's what it's about. That is what it's about. And what's weird is we don't have any competition. In our niche, which is motorhomes, campervans, caravans, we have no competition. There is no other podcast that's survived more than the first 3 episodes, a stat we're all very familiar with. There's lots of YouTubers and some really big YouTubers in our niche, but they're living their life on YouTube. They're away in their motorhome or the campervan, and they're putting bread in the toaster and burning it. There's some really informative travel stuff, but there's nobody from inside the industry, which is where I come from. I used to own a motorhome dealership. I own a shop, as I've mentioned. I own a caravan and motorhome storage business. So I'm from the business end of that pastime, and I'm a consumer of it. And I'm happy to share behind the scenes. And there's nobody else doing that. Yet there are thousands of people far more qualified than me to do it. But I guess none of them want to do it. So
It's an
here we
untapped
are.
market, really.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
why you say nearly 1 million views or downloads. That's all just about motorhomes. Well, not specifically, but that industry. So
Yeah.
you've really captured the entire industry. And as like you say, there's no one else doing the same thing in that space. So
No.
who else will they
and
listen to?
What's now getting very exciting is the doors that are opening, because we never intended to build this thing. It was built to promote the shop.
I was going to say, what was the goal at the start? Just to promote that leisure shop?
That leisure shop, yeah. And it was about useful products, accessories. Why would you buy this? You know, the cost of motorhome ownership, insuring a motorhome, the difference between a van with windows and a camper van or motor caravan, all this techie stuff, which is important when you're converting a van. Nobody was really sharing that, certainly not on a podcast platform. Loads of YouTube content, but podcasting is very different to YouTube, isn't it? So we are quite unique. It's great. I'd love a competitor.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think
Is it too easy?
what to launch a podcast?
No, to be a motorhome podcaster, there's no one challenging you.
There isn't really anyone challenging us. I think some competition would be healthy. It would make it weirdly exciting. I mean, I'm quite happy we don't have a competitor. But
You say this now.
You're now 3 years on, and
yeah, right, Kane, write it down. Launch
Should
a
we buy a
motorhome.
motorhome?
Caravan Colin, here we go. So, but I think from the consumer's point of view, it'd be great if there was more content. I mean, the topics we've covered are vast. I mean, the last one we did last week was the changes that may come to our driving licenses. Well, that affects you guys if you drive. So the European Parliament are negotiating and debating the driving license entitlements. You know, you have this grandfather rights, which you two are too young to drive 7.5 ton, I guess. I'm not. I'm an old git. But it's that kind of endorsement on your license. They're looking at changing all of that. Not being part of the EU means we don't inherit it, but we could adopt it. And that affects everybody. It's not just motorhomers. And the potential is that episode may get picked up by national press and could become easily a national story. I mean, it deserves to be. And in time it will be. But I think we're first to it. It was a live presentation I gave, and the room had standing room only. They were turning people away.
Really?
And the event organizer couldn't believe that we packed a room on the topic of driving licenses. It's not exactly exciting, is it? But it affects every one of us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
You know, this week we're talking about trackers. So you put a tracker. There's a lovely Lamborghini outside. I'm guessing that's Rob's, or is it yours?
Yeah, mine.
just like that quote.
I bet there's a tracker on that. If it's 2G, it's not going to work in a minute because the 2G network is being turned off. And by 2033, it will be gone. So Rob needs to listen to that episode because he needs to get a 4G tracker if he hasn't got one.
Yeah,
Again, that affects every motorhome owner with a motorhome over 50k because they have to have a tracker, and anybody with a supercar or any kind of tracker on any vehicle, a digger. It's relevant to a broad church, but to motorhomers, it's specific. Yeah, it's really right on point. So it's very topical, and not just what colour bedding do you want on your motorhome bed.
Where do you come up with your content ideas?
This dark space called my head.
Scary place to be.
I used to sit at a show, and I'd sit there engaging a family in conversation where they're looking at buying a motorhome. It's a life-changing number now. I mean, they're looking to spend 50 or 100 grand, and they're considering different layouts. Layouts everything in a motorhome. Rear bed or rear lounge. Does it have a bathroom? Where's the kitchen? All this stuff, which we unpack a lot on the podcast. And Jude, my other half, who's become known as Mrs. Motorhome Matt to our listeners, and she said, "How the hell do you know all this stuff? You should write a book." And this was some years ago. And so I did. I tried to, never finished it. One day I will.
So that'll do well now.
Yeah, I could do. I'd say I wish I'd finished it in 2019. The Guide to Buying Your First Motorhome. And of course, motorhome purchases went mad in 2020. But I never finished it. So, and you said, where does all this info come from? So I don't know really. I just engage with the topic. I'm passionate about the topic. And I like asking questions. I like listening and observing. And I just retained all this useless to many info, which actually is interesting to a few. So I'm a big believer in the phrase "keep looking up," and which in today's society is quite a poignant turn of phrase. And looking up for opportunity and for topics that might come our way. And I'm very much mentally doing that all the time in our industry. And if I see something like this tracker episode this week, we did an episode on Thatcham trackers, right? This is proper deep dive nerdy stuff, which if you're having to buy a tracker because your insurance company have told you, it has to be Thatcham approved. What the heck is that? So we unpacked who Thatcham are and what it means. We finished the episode with a guy from a tracking company, GPS Bob. Great name. And I love the name. And they're a brilliant company. And Guy Carter came on and we were unpacking this. And he's just leaving, and it's that kind of wrap-up conversation. He's shaking hands. Oh, thanks again, Guy. And he just dropped into conversation that the 2G network is being turned off and that we should revisit this and do another episode on the need to change to a 4G tracker. Now, I didn't know this. I said, what do you mean? When's that happening? Oh, well, across Europe now, all over Europe. Well, loads of us take our motorhomes or supercars to Europe. If you've got a 2G tracker, it may not work. So if it's nicked in France, nobody knows. So it's a really important topic. So it went out Monday night and straight off the bat, 2,000 views on YouTube, hundreds and hundreds of audio listens that evening when it went out, 500 or 600 listens straight away. And because it's such a poignant topic and important to our listenership. So I'm always on the lookout for topics and it's amazing what you can turn into a story, really.
And opportunity, you said. You said at the very start, okay, I'm doing this podcast for that leisure shop. Now, talk about where you're at now in terms of the opportunities that have come about that you obviously didn't even envisage at the start.
We definitely didn't envisage it at all. I didn't anticipate becoming this kind of mush of the industry as a face-off, as it were. So it now very passively promotes that leisure shop. We've taken the retail business, that leisure shop, to a lot of motorhome shows, to a lot of local county shows. And it's incredible how busy we've become this year, particularly, as people have a loyalty to the brand because of the podcast. So they come on and they'll spend 500 quid on 2 chairs and a table for their motorhome. And they feel they know the brand because they feel they know Motorhome Matt and they know he owns that leisure shop. And we get called Motorhome Matt Shop, which annoys me a little bit. It doesn't, but it's really, it's been a massive sales funnel to the shop. It's been great. It's one of the greatest pieces of marketing I've ever discovered. And I am a marketeer, and podcasting is genius.
Beyond that shop, though, what sort of opportunities have come about?
So next week is the Motorhome and Caravan show at the NEC in Birmingham, the biggest consumer show that the NEC host. It's 6 days. It's the entire NEC, all the new half of it, so hall 6 to 20, and 110,000 people will attend throughout the week. I mean, it's massive.
That's crazy.
And I'm on stage every day on an Ask the Expert panel, and I ask the organisers, how many people are on this panel? 3. It's like, what? Just 3? I mean, you think of that as a Premier League of experts.
Yeah.
3 people in an industry where I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people work in it. That's not lost on me at all. And it's brilliant fun. I relish it. I love it. And I'm very grateful to be asked to be there. And that's great for our brand positioning. I think on the Saturday there's actually 4 of us.
Sharing the limelight.
Yeah. And more would be great. I mean, more women on it would be brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm quite passionate about that. The bit I'm most passionate about actually within all of this is people who aspire to own a motorhome or camper van, and they lift the lid on what just appears to be a can of worms. They go and buy their first practical motorhome magazine in Tesco, and it's like, I just don't understand. Why is that 50 grand and why is that 30 grand? They look the same, but they're not, but they have no idea why. And where do I start when it comes to choosing this thing that I've been dreaming of owning for 30 years? So I'm very, very passionate about them, and also those that have just bought one or are looking to change it. Where we go with it, I don't know. I mean, the BBC have knocked on the door. That's very exciting. I've been on Wake Up to Money 5 or 6 times, which is on Radio 5 Live at a stupid o'clock. It's like 5 a.m. It's ridiculous. We are very focused, though, I have to say. We have a very clear objective that we're focused on the Red Sofa, BBC One Breakfast, The One Show, Watchdog. That's where we want to take this brand. So I have a column in Practical Motorhome, which I mentioned earlier, so it was actually a double-page spread, which is fantastic, which is I get paid for. That's really great. And so doing more stuff like that, like talking at the trade shows. There's shows all year that Warner's, they're based near here actually, organise, and I speak at lots of those as well. Presentations next year, probably hosting their advice centre, which is brilliant exposure. But mainstream is where we want to take it. Sadly, our industry often only features in the mainstream media when it's a bad news story. It's a caravan's rolled over on the motorway, or someone's emptying their toilet on the NC 500 and pouring it in a rose bush, which is just disgusting. And of course, it's a minority that spoil it for the majority, as in any niche. It's like dog walkers, one or two don't pick up the dog poo, the other 1,000 aren't allowed to use the field. It's the same in every industry. So I'm really, really keen. I'm very determined that we'll get our industry in the mainstream media in a positive light, because it deserves to be in a positive light. It's a fantastic pastime, and the freedom and the mental health benefits it can give are just massive. So I'm keen that I become that person that's able to do that alongside others, but that's very much where we want to go with it.
What's your time frame?
A couple of weeks.
After the NEC, straight on to BBC.
There's another great phrase, isn't there, that every overnight success takes 10 years to build. Man, that's so frustrating, but so true. What is our time frame? When it happens, I will keep looking up, and when the opportunity comes, I will grab it. It's hard to say. Something could happen next week. It might happen next year. It will happen when it happens. But we have a phrase in our shop above the door when you go out, enjoy the journey, which is the last thing my mum said to me before she passed away. She was in bed dying of cancer. And I said, Mum, I won't be able to see you tomorrow because I was off travelling to see a friend. But I'll be back Sunday. It was on the Friday night. And I said, I'll be back Sunday. And sadly, at 5 a.m, she passed away. But on that Friday night, the last thing she said to me was, enjoy the journey. And that's above the shop exit as you go out of the shop. And it's become very much a motto for me that, life isn't a destination. I know it's cheesy, but it is a journey. And I am loving the journey. My life's been full of lots of events and traumas and challenges and huge things worthy of celebration, and I celebrate them all and try and enjoy every one of them. So it will happen when it happens. I'll let you know when.
It's hard as an entrepreneur, right? Because you're always so focused on your end result that I suppose it's a bit of a talent to enjoy the climb.
Yeah. I'm not sure I am focused on an end result because I don't think it's ever finished. People say to me, what does your business look like when it's finished? Finished? And what are you going to do in retirement? What's that?
Yeah.
There's no way I'm retiring. I'll take a pension. I don't use the word retirement. I use the word drawing a pension. I'm planning a business now that I can run in my 80s. I want to have a business that I can run very passively and will work without me in it day to day. And I'm building that now, and I'm 52. Because that's my pension. My pension's awful, it's rubbish. I'll build my own. I can make a much bigger, better pension for myself than I can rely on the government giving me one. My business will never be finished. I don't want to be finished.
I want to do it forever.
No, well, I don't know if I do want to do it forever. I just want to keep seizing opportunity while it's there. I mean, this whole podcast thing was never in the plan. It was something I thought would be a great idea, and it's become this huge thing, as other things I'm doing in my life and in the business and have become huge things. But the podcast bit certainly was never planned. It just kind of happened. And boy, what a journey. It's been amazing. It's been brilliant fun. I've loved pretty much every minute of it. And it's just getting more and more exciting. We're very, very committed to it. It is a huge amount of work. I mean, it doesn't stop, does it?
No, people underestimate that. And I think that's why so many people give up after a couple of episodes.
Yeah, I think because they cap their capability of thinking about stuff and creating content. So they have an idea, a great idea, and maybe get 4 or 5 episodes out of it, and then it runs out of puff. They're kind of everyone's bored of it, and it's like, you need to do something else now, but you need to be planning the something else before you started the first one. We plan 20 episodes in the future. Not just next week, and we'll record 3 or 4 as a batch, as lots of us do. So we kind of cheat, which spoils it for the listener. But we will be planning certainly 4, 5, 6 episodes into the future, and we'll be talking about Christmas and New Year now. We're in October right now, and we've been talking about that already.
Really?
So yeah, absolutely. And we want to make sure we deliver it. And when you're committing to a weekly episode, that's a big commitment. And I feel I mustn't let our listener or viewer down by not doing that. So we've never struggled for content ever. I mean, there's almost too much.
That's impressive in such a niche. Because I'd admit, sometimes we sit like, bloody hell, what should we talk about? We always manage to figure something out, but it can be tough, we find, in a specific niche to come up with fresh content every week.
Yeah. But I think your opportunity is to do this and get other
More
voices coming in. Yeah, more interviews. I'd love to have more interviews on your podcast. I mean, you two are great.
But-
I want less of you and more of someone else.
You two are great, and Anton Deck would be proud, as you keep being referred to. This Anton Deck
way
reference.
too much.
But I think other voices, there was a but then. Honestly, I think other voices and other opinions, other stories inspire in you other content.
Sure.
And because other people's stories really matter. Everyone has a story, and they will be of interest to your audience, I'm sure.
No, absolutely. I think these are great because you spoke about your goals at the start is just to increase sales in your shop. And that's similar across everyone who starts a podcast. They might have coaching and they're like, oh, I want more clients. But then the things that have come out of it, I mean, how many different ways now do you monetize Moto Matt?
Well, there are the businesses that surround it. So I'll start there. So we've got the shop. We have a motorhome hire and sales business. That's been brilliant for people that have listened and then think, oh, let's hire one. Matt has a hire company, and they come to us from Kent, and we're in Bristol. I mean, they'll travel 5 hours to hire a motorhome, and then, of course, go to Cornwall. Our storage business, we've got customers from New Zealand and Australia, loads of them at the moment, where the podcast has managed to get some traction. And these folks have a motorhome that might be a French motorhome. They come to the UK to fly back home to Australia and leave it with us. They could leave it anywhere, but they come to our little corner of North Somerset. And I mean, the storage business offers quite a unique proposition of care for a motorhome, a bit like the yacht industry. It's quite unusual. So that's really grown. And then the direct monetization that the podcast has is sponsorship. So with your help, we landed Ripe Insurance this last year, who are new to our marketplace, a long-established insurance business with a brilliant offering for motorhome and campervan owners. And I mean, they smashed it out of the park. I mean,
They were very happy, weren't they?
They were. I mean, even they were underestimating how successful it had been as a campaign. And they're about to kick off again for the next couple of months. And we're in discussion about them being a sponsor all year next year, which is a big ticket item of sponsorship for them, which I just still find incredible. It's amazing. I'm really grateful to them for that. And then we launched this marketing stroke of genius, dare I say.
Self-proclaimed.
It's called the Moto Matt Approved Directory. So I'm regularly asked, Matt, who do you go to for insurance, for a tracker, for cleaning products, for finance? Which brands do you trust? And so we launched this directory of product, services, brands and companies that I've used, I can endorse, and most importantly, I can commend. Mm-hmm. And it has to be 100% authentic, otherwise it falls apart. Yeah. And we have turned quite a few away, and these brands pay to be on it. It's £2,400 for a year at the moment. That I anticipate will go up. So it's £200 a month to a corporate, which is buttons. A page in a magazine is $2 or $3 grand for 1 month in our industry. So you get a year's presence, and we promote the heck out of it. And it will be having thousands of hits next week, because at the big show at the NEC, we are promoting it really heavily. And we are getting brands approaching us with whom I'm familiar and I've used and I know, and I either welcome them open answer, I would love for you to be on it, because I love what you guys do. You really help me. And each brand gets a personal endorsement video from me, recorded in our studio. And it explains why I love this brand, what they've done for me, and why I think you, as a consumer, should engage with them or with it. And it's been a massive success, and we've scratched the surface. But if you think, £2,400, if we could get 100 of them, we've suddenly got £250,000 income stream.
It's massive, isn't it?
From an idea that we didn't even anticipate happening.
It's a fantastic downsell from sponsorship as well, because if you're going to speak to someone about a potential 20, 30, 40,000 pound sponsorship package, and then they say, look, that's out of budget. But like, okay, well, actually, Here's that middle step.
Here's an idea, yeah. And it's very low barrier to entry because cost-wise, it's not. I mean, for some businesses, it's a lot of money. If you're a sole trader, I get it. And we may come up with a different type of engagement plan with them because of the scale they are at. We'll see, but we'll see where it goes. But for a big business that's selling motorhomes, selling thousands of units a year at 50 grand, it's nothing. They'll spend that day on Facebook ads, and this lasts for 12 months, and it's not throwing proverbial at a wall. It's absolutely laser focused. The 50,000 people that listen to an episode are all absolutely the right people. And if I mention that brand to them, they're all going to hear it. It's not, 10% might be interested and 6% of that might take action and 1% of that will. It's every one of them are interested. And so it's so on point. And I think brands within our niche who are quite old fashioned, there's still a lot of people doing print. We love a brochure in our industry, and we love magazines. But so the brands they realise they need to do more digital media, and this is a really contemporary way of doing it that really, really works. So I'm really excited about it, and it's actually it's a pleasure to sell it. So would you like to be on the Moto Matt approved directory? We'd love to welcome you. So, oh, wow, thank you. Well, there is a cost. How much is it? He said, well, it's equivalent to £200 a month. And how many people are going to hit? Well, probably 40 or 50,000 regular listeners. So, I don't know, 200,000 times, people are going to hear it. And it's like, what? Really? For 200 quid?
And you can offer that value because of the amount that are in there. And as that grows, then it's not like you're getting a sponsorship deal for a year for that, which you underselling it, because actually they're part of a group of people. It's the same concept as selling a mastermind, right? If you're selling education, instead of selling one-to-one, you're selling a mastermind where it could be a lot more affordable because actually it's one-to-many, and it's almost like the same approach, but the sponsorship equivalent.
Yeah, and I think the big thing about it as well is you really understand what it is. So selling sponsorship, it's like selling air. Trying to understand a sponsorship deal, man, it was so complicated for us trying to work out sponsorship. You've got future episodes, and then you could sponsor one for 6 weeks in the future, but then it becomes a past episode, and you could stay on there for another 10 weeks, or you could sponsor one episode in the past, and you could sponsor that for a year, or you could sponsor 20 episodes for 6 weeks. Oh my goodness.
Try creating a price book, didn't we? And I looked at that, I was like, this makes everything so much harder.
It's so complicated, and it is, and you helped us simplify it, to be fair. You really said, Matt, cut through the crap, it's like this. It's this much for future and it's this much for past. I was like, oh, okay. But we got so tied up, and it took us weeks and months to try and figure out some kind of retail price list, as it were. And we never figured it out. It's complicated.
It is. We get asked all the time, it's like, how much should I charge for sponsorship? And it doesn't matter who you are, it always depends. Depends on the brand, depends on the offer, and depends on everything you've got with it. And even then, it's hard to just pick out a number out of thin air. Often you've just got to almost put yourself in the position of the brand and be like, okay, am I likely to make a return on investment at that amount? Yeah, that seems fair. Everyone's getting paid fairly, because when you talk about averages, you then talk about CPM and you talk about ad networks, and the value to both the brand and the podcaster is minimal there.
But I mean, based on what we're selling sponsorship for, our CPM is through the roof.
It's massive, and yet the company that sponsored you have made a great return and want to work with you for the next whole year. So,
and what's interesting, they've done it, and that then sets the line in the sand of how much it is to sponsor.
Exactly.
And competitors see that and go, oh, that's interesting. I reckon they've made, if there's this many people hearing it, we know what the average consumer spend is. They work it out for themselves. Let's have a conversation. So not even competitors, just, complementary brands go through the motions themselves. And we're starting to bubble up some conversations for the future, which are interesting. So we'll see where it goes. But when you start out, it's really hard. I was nicknamed in my previous work life, I worked in corporate events, and I was known as Nike Sims because I would always just say, just do it. I hate procrastination. I hate it. I hate it when I do it, and I'm guilty of it. But just do it. And if someone's saying, we want to work with you, how much? Just give them a number. What's the worst that can happen? They say no. So go back with a different number. Try and understand why it was a no, and go back again. If $5,000 was too much, then go in at 3. And if that's too much, go in at 1. Just move it forward and start the ball rolling. Just do it. You're on a journey, remember, and the more you do it, and it takes time, the overnight success is a myth. It is going to take time, but you've just got to build it slowly, and you'll get there. Wherever there is.
Yeah. Still yet to figure that out.
How much do you expect Motorhome Matt as a brand will make next year?
So I would love to think it could do £250,000 of income. I genuinely believe it could. We're probably going to set a target of 150 grand, but we'll aspirationally have a £250,000 target.
So would that be sponsorship, YouTube, and approved?
So we don't monetize our YouTube. Turned it off.
Interesting.
I hate YouTube adverts. I hate waiting for that skip button. And our audience hate it too. All of the other YouTubers in our industry are monetizing, and people with 50 plus thousand, 100,000 subscribers are scraping an income out of it. And it's like, well, you know what? I can make $2,500 a month from YouTube if I manage to hit that kind of. We're nowhere near that level of subscribers. I would love it if the YouTube app told you how much you could have earned. This is what you could have won had you turned the monetization on, and it doesn't. Because I'm often intrigued how much are we giving away by not monetizing this. I reckon it's probably we're nearly 8,000 subscribers, 1.1 million impressions. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe someone that's a YouTube expert would tell me. But maybe £1,000 a month.
I tell you for free, it's not going to be anywhere near what you make from the sponsorship. And do you think actually your sponsors get better return on investment because there's not that other?
Of course they do. Everyone gets a better return on investment.
So
the
therefore you make more money by not having that on.
Yeah, the consumer gets a better return on investment of their time because they haven't got to watch someone vacuuming the floor with some sprinkly dust or whatever the advert is, which I saw this morning. I was like, why am I watching that advert for shake and vac? I don't even know where the vacuum is stored in the house. So yeah, I hate the YouTube adverts, and yeah, that's exactly it. Everyone gets better return on investment, and I would rather go out and pick up the phone an extra time and earn that or more from putting in a bit more effort by selling a Moto Matt approved directory listing or sponsorship than have adverts.
Like you did on the way here.
I sold 3.
How many have you got in total?
That's a good question. So it's very new, it's building. So probably 50.
I've got 50 on your approved.
No, it's probably not that many. I think there's 50 in the pipeline. We use something called Pipe Drive, which captures the value on the table, and it's over 100 grand, just sat there waiting to be closed. And there's probably about 30 brands on there at the moment. So it's growing and
live?
How long has it been live? When did we launch it? Earlier this year?
To when Ripe started.
Summertime? Yeah.
So what?
And
4 months?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. August time. July, August time. So we've scratched the surface, and there are some easy wins, of course, at the beginning. And we've got brands on there that are our own businesses, so they're not paying, of course.
Yeah.
And we've done a few deals to get things going. But we're pretty strict. We had one brand that said, can we try it for free for 3 months and see how it goes? And we did debate it, and I said, no, you can't. This is absolutely going to work. And it has to be a collaboration with you, because we want you to promote that you are Moto Matt approved. We have a service centre near us that we use a lot. They're a repair centre for motorhomes. And the guys there are constantly promoting the fact that they are Moto Matt approved. It's like a badge of honour they wear with huge pride, and it drives business into them.
It's like financial companies being like, I'm FCA regulated. No. It's all about Moto Matt approved.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. So one of our Matt approved brands is a finance company, and and we have a warranty company as well, and they're all very, very heavily regulated. And they said, what we love about this is there's no regulation. We can get an approval from UMA, and I passionately love both brands, and for good reason. And they are awesome, and I happily approve them and commend them to our listeners. They haven't got to go through any red tape, no accreditation. It's just great service, which they've given to me in the past, and I'm happy to sing their praises. And they commented, the warranty company particularly, that we love the fact there's none of the red tape that goes with the normal accreditation we have to achieve. So they're really on board with it. It's great.
Because you do your due diligence, right? Because you secret shopped your sponsor.
I did. So Ripe, I'd never heard of, and I've made no secret of this to them and to our listener. And I did secret shop them and got an insurance quote for our own camper van. And our insurance company hanged you. Like, you don't commit, and they're on it, they're emailing, they're texting, they're ringing. Ripe pursued me for a few days, and then it went quiet. And then I got another phone call because I didn't take the quote up, and I changed a load of the criteria, and they happily engaged with me. It was an English-speaking person, and they were a Mancunian because they're based in Manchester, and I love that. Not for any reason of race, it was just an easy conversation. I could understand everything they said to me, and they got it. And they were happy to tailor the policy, came through again on email, and I didn't take it up. But I had a really, really good experience. The premium they gave me before any Motorhome Matt discount was amazing. I mean, it was really competitive. And I picked through the schedule of insurance because what's covered in a motorhome is really important. You know, contents, going to Europe, breakdown, how long is it? Will the AA recover it? There's a limit on how long a vehicle can be before they won't recover you. That's important. All of this stuff was ticked. It's like, this is really good. And the price was incredible. And then they said, we'd like to offer your listeners a 25% discount when they say Motorhome Matt for the launch. We thought, what? Wow, this is amazing. And people have messaged saying, Matt, you've saved us £300 on our premium. Thank you. Just for saying Motorhome Matt when they rang and got a quote.
So your audience is pleased to hear a sponsor.
That financially better off because of a sponsorship deal. And the benefit to them. And I'm passionate about serving the listener who is the consumer. That's really important to me. I'm a consumer-focused guy from within the industry. And I think that's the reputation I've got. And lots of people have commented I'm very fair, and I'll give an even platform to both sides of a discussion or argument and try and question, understand why these people maybe don't agree with each other, if that's the scenario. But try and be really level-headed. I won't throw anybody under the bus unless they deserve to go under it.
Well, under the motorhome.
Yeah, under the motorhome, yeah.
Tell that
very
one was
good.
one of yours.
Yeah, I'll take that. But I try and be really objective and serve the consumer. I'm very passionate about serving the listener, the consumer.
That secret shopping thing you've done as well, I think the brand were really impressed with that. And when you brought it up to them, said, by the way, I've secret shopped you. And that's something that a lot of podcasters can take away and be like, okay, if I've got the opportunity to speak with a brand who are interested in working with me, don't turn up not knowing anything about them. If you do, as a minimum, your research and can take that one step further and be like, I actually interacted with you and I really like the way you've done this. I'd love to tell my listeners about it.
Yeah.
I think that really, really impressed them because I was on that call and when you said that to her, she was like, it's great to know you've actually looked into us and you care. Yeah, and that definitely helped them go, we need to do
Well, I
this.
absolutely do care because if we're going to work with any brand, they're an endorsement. I'm endorsing them, and they become an extension of my brand. Now, I'm very much put Motorhome Matt in a third tense, as it were, as a personal brand, and I am building a brand. I mean, I'm under no illusion. I know it's this face, but people are buying into a brand. But how that brand is represented by third parties is really, really critical. And and we have turned companies away who will never be named. And people ask me all the time, who have you turned down, Matt? And I won't share it. I don't think that's fair. But focus on the ones that I do endorse.
What have you done in terms of marketing and promoting your podcast?
Me, very little. I have an amazing team. I have a Maddie who's very talented, and she's far better at it than I am, although hopefully she won't hear this.
I'll send it to her.
Yeah. So every episode that goes out gets socially shared. Most of our audience are Instagram and Facebook. Facebook's a big thing. Yeah. I'm a Facebook user. I still don't understand Instagram, which makes all the team laugh. It goes out in a weekly email. So we've built 2 email lists. One's 30-odd thousand, one's just under 10,000.
How did you build those?
So one has been 9 years in the creation. It was 135,000.
Wow.
And we used to run competitions to win a motorhome holiday. So it was our motorhome hire business, motorhome holiday company, that was building that list from brochure requests, hire inquiries, customers. And it grew and grew and grew. And then that thing called GDPR came along. And I went, okay, we're going to have to kill 100,000. I think it was 89,000 people got culled because they hadn't opted in properly. Right. And they got put onto a spreadsheet for use on Facebook, but taken out of our then Infusionsoft, as it was known, list. And that floats around 30-odd thousand, really high open rates. Sometimes we get 80-odd% open rate. Wow. It's incredible. So a highly engaged list. the podcast gets promoted to them every week and to the other list, which is built by the shop. So they're people who have bought and opted in or downloaded some kind of lead magnet. And then doing the shows. So speaking at lots of shows is big brand awareness. We are media partner to Warner's Events, who run 9 motorhome shows across the country. They are literally Lincoln, Newark, Somerset. They're all over the country. And we're a media partner for them. So there's brand presence in the programme, on all their email comms, on their social presence, and then I'm at the shows speaking or hosting. So it's very niche focused. The column in Practical Moto magazine has been good as well. I don't know what readership that has now, but that gets referenced a lot by the audience. So it's the traditional methods really, and just being highly engaged with our industry. Next week is a big one as well with the big show.
You get a spike after that usually, don't you? The NEC?
Yeah, last year we... on that thing called Chartable, they're closing it down.
Yeah, they are. We've done an
That
episode.
episode will be live soon. I know it went live today.
No,
actually.
I heard it this morning on the way here. I thought I'd better listen into a few of the recent ones. Well, you started talking about it, Kane. It's like, Kane, they're shutting it off. How long ago did you record this? And then you went into saying, swearing about them because they're turning it off. It's a vanity metric, isn't it?
It is.
And I know that. And Keith, who I co-present with, who contacted me all that time ago, is my co-presenter, and we've built this kind of magic kind of duo. He's always looking at Chartable, and last year during the big show we hit number 1 in loads of countries within automotive and leisure, and in the UK number 4, and Top Gear number 9.
Nice.
We're regularly above Top Gear, and there's some big automotive brands that you would have heard of even if you don't like cars, who are floating around the top 10, and we're regularly in amongst them. It's incredible. It's
all based on followers in a short amount of time, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
People at the NEC that maybe scanning the QR code to your Apple podcast, or just going on Apple and clicking follow. If you get a load of people do that in the space of a couple of days,
spike.
you're going to fly.
And I'm sure we'll be in that top 10, if not top 3. It'd be nice. I mean, I don't really care, but I care more about how many people are listening to it, benefiting from it, and then that commercially we can monetize that with sponsorships and directory placement. So.
It's probably quite a hard one to predict, but taking into consideration the money you make at events and also the sales you make, which of the income streams do you think actually generates the most money when you think Moto Matt? Like, is it the impact it's had on that leisure shop, or is it directly the sponsorships? Where do you think most of the income comes from?
So building a retail business that has a bricks and mortar shop, so a real shop, and online, post-pandemic, what a stupid idea. And I thought, let's do it. What could go wrong? And we have. And the shop this year probably was already done 800K this year. The target was 800K this year. We've still got Christmas to go, and we have got some belter ideas coming through in this month and November. Products that we're importing, that we've had designed, and look to be very, very lucrative for Christmas. So we could easily tip £1 million in the shop. So that's been the first big benefit. There's been a very passive benefit in our other businesses, tens of thousands of pounds. The podcast itself this year will probably do 100K, maybe 90. I'm determined we'll get to 100K, and next year we can double that, I reckon.
Especially with Moto Matt, and if that long sponsor.
And the shop though has quite high operating costs. So it needs to churn big numbers to become a contributor to the bottom line. The podcast, its overhead is far smaller. Keith, my co-presenter, is freelance, so he's an overhead. We've got an overhead in the studio, which is part of a bigger rent picture, and marketing costs, of course. But compared to the shop, it's a far more profitable income stream. And it's a secret source of a future pillar of income within the business going forward.
I suppose with that as well, fine, you might have slight rental incomes if you don't, or increases if you don't own it, and maybe you pay your staff a little bit more. But if you're compounding in terms of your following is going up and to the right, and you start going really viral, and then suddenly a sponsor pays you 4 times as much from one month to the other, suddenly that bottom line gets very big.
Yeah, and the great thing that fascinates me about our audience is they're very well heeled. So they're people who are spending 50K or 100K or more on something that's in their leisure time. It's not their home. It's not an essential purchase at all. It's a motorhome. And they love holidaying. They love eating out. So Michelin star restaurants, we know, are a big Google search for our audience. And eating out of food is another big hobby of our audience. And what I find fascinating is what opportunities are there with some big national brands who want to target and hit this very lucrative audience, straight away, first time, every time. Brands like Expedia. I mean, you just think of the household brands that may want access to them. We're already engaging with some clothing brands, some luggage brands, one in particular that, it's slow burn at the moment, but eventually it'll warm up to a point where I say, Ashley, I need your help. And we'll get you involved with it. We'll bring out the big guns.
Something like that.
There's nothing there, is there?
Yeah, I haven't been to the gym. Leave me alone.
If you're watching to this, Kane has just groped Ashley's place.
we need to get Matt on more.
If you can call it that.
Very affectionately.
That's the one, affection. Yeah.
That's all you're getting.
Yeah.
So that's what I find fascinating as we build this kind of media platform with an audience that's very engaged, very loyal, that benefits from being there. And if it's a brand that serves them, then it could become very lucrative and it's a win-win-win for everyone, the sponsor, the audience, and for us.
We spoke about that, didn't we, with the Ripe situation. It was a win for you because you got paid more than the average sponsorship. A win for them because they've made great money. Then a win for your audience because they've all saved money on their insurance.
Exactly.
It's a triple win.
There's no downside to it at all. And everyone was really happy about it. I mean, Maddie less so because getting all the words proofed because of the regulatory nature of it.
That is the thing with insurance companies, right? Every word has to be approved.
Maddie has had to work really hard on it. And that's a word of warning. If you're looking at engaging with a brand that is heavily regulated, it's hard work for everybody because they want to stay the right side of the rules. And it's. But
the good thing about those brands on the flip side is they're often in need. Like if you want a motorhome, you need insurance. So then if they sponsor you for a whole year, every single person in your audience at some point is going to have to renew their insurance during that year. Yeah. They're going to get an opportunity. So anyone that's in need also makes for it. Although they often have to be regulated, they make for a great.
But also, something like insurance is not very exciting, is it? You have to have it, and it's like it's like dead money. It's like dead wood to us as consumers. But getting involved with a podcast suddenly makes it quite interesting. And we've tried really hard to make it exciting that we're engaging with an insurance company. And for you, there's a benefit to this. Go and check it out. It takes a few minutes just to get a quote and see what you could save. And so we've tried to put that positive kind of enthusiastic spin on it, and that's been quite easy really because it has been a genuine offer. It's been good.
What are some of your big plans for the podcast going forward?
That's a great question. So to continue pushing out episodes weekly, we've committed to doing that into next year. So keep creating great content. We are in discussions with Warner's Events again about becoming media partner next year. And maybe some broader conversations as well. We'll see what that opens. I would love to finish my book that I referenced earlier. I would love to do that for sure. And just keep growing and scaling it. I mean, we're in this kind of J curve now, which YouTube has given us, where it's kind of really starting to gather momentum. I'm not worried about stuff going viral. That can be detrimental to your brand if something like that happened.
You only want to get in front of the right audience, right?
Yeah. We still remain, as I said earlier, very focused on mainstream media. That's
the big goal.
I'm really passionate about that because there is nobody from our industry really doing it. And we deserve an airing. It's a pastime. You listen to Radio 1, Radio 2, whatever. People are always talking about going off in the motorhome, the camper van life. The hashtag van life has become massive on Instagram. And it's a household pastime. Not everybody wants to do it, but everyone understands what it is. And I think most people understand what it affords you in terms of that waking up with a different view every morning and diving into that plunge pool, leaving the van behind. Do you know what I mean? That idyllic rubbish that isn't true at all. There's me and my Speedos slam dunking into a muddy puddle. That's as close as I get. But I think it's such a mainstream pastime, and it is such a wonderful pastime. It's growing in this country more than ever. Going abroad is difficult. It's fraught with cost. I mean, I've just been to Mallorca with my 16-year-old to celebrate his GCSE results. £1,200 for 3 nights. Okay, it was all inclusive. £1,200.
Jesus.
Flying there and flying back. It was a nice hotel, but it wasn't the world's best hotel by a long way.
So I paid the same for, a bit more for Portugal, and it was a shit hotel. And that was also 3 nights. So
Right.
yeah, I can get with you on that one. It's awful.
It's not cheap.
No.
And you can camp out for free. You don't have to go on a campsite. There's this brilliant network called Britstops, which is pubs that allow you to park in the car park, for free. I mean, the problem then is you turn a 3 nights camping into £120 night out in the pub that you don't remember.
It's clever, isn't it? Because as soon as you've had 2, you're like, well, you can't leave now.
I've got a bed in my car.
So you might as well keep drinking.
10 paces, I'm in bed.
Yeah.
So we're really focused on getting our industry into the mainstream in a positive light. We deserve to be, and getting a really informative spokesperson that can share what's going on behind the scenes of our industry and bring more people into it.
Would you ever do a live show then? Of your own?
We've done live podcasts before. We'll probably do one next week. We've got a couple of guests lined up.
What about hosting your own, just the Moto Matt show?
The Motorhome Matt Show.
As a live event.
I say you convert a van and you do it in a big car park.
Yeah, see, I'm not on my own with no one watching, just security. We could do something. I'm not a van converter, but there's lots we could do. I was watching Jamie Oliver last night, and he was on the telly, and he's been around a long time. He is a massive household brand, and he is genius. I love Jamie Oliver. He's a Marmite character, isn't he? Not everyone likes him. I love him. And what he was doing last night was really clever, and it just, for me, hit the spot at 52. It's like, I love this guy. I want to be like this guy in the kitchen, not necessarily in life, although I'm sure he's a very wealthy man. But in terms of his ability to turn something really simple into a culinary delight, that was clever. And I was watching it thinking, how can we take that magic and put it into a motorhome context? And I was thinking, well, going around some motorhomes, looking at layouts, why is this layout rubbish? Why is this really good? And what do I think about it? And why do I think it's great? And we might try something like that next week at the show.
know the guy from the jet business, TikTok, he does a lot of stuff around layouts of like private jets and stuff like that. And people, that content goes really viral. Like people really love that stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Because a private jet's really accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very high value audience.
But it's it works.
Yeah.
You know?
What about if a brand was to say, look, we have this motorhome holiday, like would you do this holiday and record the whole thing and do that as an episode?
Possibly, yeah. What we're not is a travelogue. We're not a travel.
You don't want to fall into that category.
No. We're not a product testing business, and we're not a travel journalist. I'm not the travel show. And we have been asked to take a motorhome and go and use it and document it. There's loads of people doing that in our niche, and they do it really well. That's not me. I am a businessman. I've got several businesses. I work flat out. I've got 4 kids. And who increasingly don't need me in the same way they used to. Now they just want my money. That's not true. But they're getting older, so life's changing for them and for me. But yeah, I'm not a travel journalist, and that's not really on our radar.
Maybe that's why you've done so well, is because of how you've been so specific to your niche and your angle.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's an interesting opportunity coming next year, which has been talked about, and that's all, not confirmed, but it's a big trip in a motorhome. And I was invited to do a part of it. And I said, yeah, I would love to. And I would love to. But I probably would come at it from a different angle to someone who's talking about the scenery and the tourism aspect of going on that trip. I'd be talking about why is that rattling on this motorhome now and how can I fix it? Which is a real world stuff to someone who owns a motorhome. If you're ever in Asda and you see that somebody nicking the little squares of bubble wrap out of the melons and the fruit and veg, go and ask them, what camper van have you got? Because they're putting them between the plates.
Oh, really?
That's where we all get our bubble wrap from.
I can imagine it now. Someone's there like vlogging themselves on a hill with a lake, and then it cuts to you and you're just under the sink.
Put some bubble wrap.
Hey, Matt.
It's really glamorous.
What are you doing, Matt? Yeah.
Can you say much more about that opportunity, or is it under wraps at the moment?
Under wraps.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. I'll let you know when it's happening. But it's a big trip. Yeah, we'll see.
Exciting stuff.
I'm excited to be part of that.
Amazing. Well, Matt, thanks for coming all this way.
It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. And it's great to see the studio in the flesh.
You going to listen to this episode? Listen back to yourself? No.
Yeah, I will. I'm sure I will. Yeah.
No, Matt, it's been brilliant to have you on. Been brilliant to see you as well for the first time. So.
No, it's great to actually meet you. You're real.
Believe it or not.
I thought you were inflated, but no.
Biceps and everything.
I can touch you.
That's definitely not inflated.
No, it's great to come in. Thank you. And if you're interested in motorhomes, camper vans, please check out Moto Matt podcast. Yeah, it'd be great.
That was what I was about to say, but you've done it yourself. So cheers.
Yeah, well,
He's good at this.